All right, now let's talking about survival at this time. Most investors in Nigeria are urgently looking to hedge against inflation and currency devaluation. Many asset classes have been touted to be that hedge, but with inflation at 26% and projected to rise even more, some are projecting about 30% next. It's getting harder to beat inflation in Nigeria. Let's see how the real estate sector is faring so far. Join us for this conversation now is Mr. Paul Erubami, President, Association of Facility Management Practitioners, joining me right here in the studio. It's great to have you. Good morning.
Thank you. Good morning.
Yeah, and as you heard from my previous guest there, he's praying for the survival of his industry. I'm praying for the survival of the consumers and the passengers, and I'm sure investors are looking for survival.
Yeah.
At this point, we've talked about different, asset classes that can hedge, against inflation, and the number one they always talk about, apart from gold, is real estate.
Yes.
And we're seeing inflation up about 26%.
Yes.
How is inflation? How is the real estate sector faring as a hedge?
Well, the real estate sector is a very formidable sector in terms of value preservation because of the intrinsic valuation that goes with land itself. So in terms of business and investment decisions, because of the land connection to that investment, there's resilience in the real estate sector.
And do you see, because at the end of the day, we're talking about some rentals here. We're seeing, short-term stays are getting quite popular, at this time. How are they keeping up with the inflation numbers at this point?
I think inflation is a general thing. All prices generally go up,
right.
And when these prices go up, it's going to affect
all
when
it's
all
going
sectors.
up so fast. It's
yes.
going up really fast.
Definitely,
It's
ridiculous. Definitely, and the rise of those kind of prices, the impact on the lower and middle class, consumers of this real estate sector is the biggest challenge we're having in that area. The prices are going up. There's more supply on the luxury or high-end real estate sector. And then the occupancy is also dwindling because when the economy is having this kind of friction or challenge, then you see businesses, scaling down. And so there will be more vacancies over time. But that particular sector is not the one that is really highly impacted in terms of the human impact of this inflation. It is this medium and low class residences, SMEs that have to also compete in the same market where they don't have the funds to deal with such high costs.
What would you say is the best strategy now for an investor, trying to use, real estate as that hedge? What's the best strategy to go about this and to get the best benefits?
Okay, so over the years, real estate has been working in isolation of the long-term, what we call a life cycle approach. People just see real estate as a business, you dump money into it and hope to get returns, quick returns. But long-term life cycle approaches will be better for investors now. Have an operational readiness and sustainability mindset when planning those investments because future operational costs, future quality and experience of the end users will ensure that you have, increasing value for your investment. If you do things that, dump things into the market and people buy it and have buyer's remorse almost immediately, you hurt your brand, you hurt the sustainability of that particular business itself. So engage facility management early in the process so that there's an operational readiness plan, there's a capital improvement and replacement cycle put in place, there's long-term sustainability of that investment. So you don't just plan short-term. Real estate is not a short-term kind of investment. You need to think about the whole life cycle. And to do that, your investment should not just be what it will cost you to deliver on the project now, because that's where investors are getting it wrong, right? Within a short while, degradation curve sets in, all kinds of maintenance issues crop up, and people are beginning to get a bad taste from investing in that project, and before long you're having value erosion and devaluation of your assets. So if you incorporate facility management on time, have a strategic facility management planning framework in place, then you can use that for the long term and make a lot of returns. So you see in the market there are basically two classes: the ones that are running down and begin to attract less and less in terms of returns, and those that are continuing to attract a premium because of what they have put in place in the area of facility management. So this is a core area that investors should be looking at. Don't throw your money into an investment where you are not sure that the facility management and the operational readiness and sustainability has been guaranteed.
Fantastic. And talking about, a bad taste, in the mouth of investors now, we see the Lagos State government has embarked on a round of, demolition of illegal structures, and definitely we've seen investors cry, because of this. And I'm wondering, why are some of these investors building, illegally on some of these parts?
Good question. Good question. So I believe that there should be thorough investigation on how these kind of constructions came up in the first place, right? I don't believe demolition is the solution. If you demolish and somebody was a victim, he should be compensated. But if that person was part or an accessory to a crime, because when you violate there's a code, there's a design, there's a layout, there's an approval process for all of this. If you violate that, demolition is just one step. You should be prosecuted as well, right? So we should think about it as a way to bring about deterrence. People should be better due diligence before they put their money into investment. Sometimes we do this consciously. We just know that this is illegal.
Because I can imagine, you're a young man, you just managed to raise money to put up that property, and it's demolished right before your eyes. That's heart-wrenching.
And that's why I'm talking about the prosecution aspect, because the developers are not the ones whose funds are mostly tied down. They sell off land, for example, and then by the time they develop, a lot of people have their investments.
Do we blame the developers here?
Of course, they have to do more due diligence. They have to better due diligence. If you get people's money to put into an investment and then you've not done the proper legal documentation and approvals, and the thing goes down the drain, you should be liable. I also want investors, individual investors who are investing in this
Should
schemes,
the developers refund those buyers?
That's where we are going, but would they? If it's now demolished, it's almost a force majeure kind of situation. It's not my fault, this has been demolished, right? So you who want to invest in those kind of schemes, also do your due diligence. It's not because, an investment looks good, you just go and dump your money into it. You must do your due diligence. You must find out if that property is sitting on land that's approved for such a purpose.
How can a buyer really find that out?
Oh, there are consultants they can use for that. There are consultants that can walk through the lands registry records, bring out proper documentation that verifies that this is not going to have an encumbrance in the future. You have lawyers and architects and quantity surveyors and town planners, that do all those.
They'll be able to identify such.
They tell you if it has issues, if it doesn't have issues. But some people know there's a gray area in these developments, and because the pricing is good, they think they can make a quick cash out of the investment, and then they get in.
So sad, so sad. I really do not want to be in that kind of position. But let's look at the credits to the private sector. Now we see it's fairly improved from about 54.7 trillion naira to 58.6. Not a bad improvement there. But how much of that is the real estate sector getting?
The real estate is really awash with investments. A lot of developments are going up, and there are two ways to look at it. A lot of these investments are going up in areas where infrastructure is really poor. Okay? So the final cost of delivery, you take a loan, you have to pay interest on it, and then you're basically building your own infrastructure, power, roads, water, and all of that, right? So the eventual landing cost of those, projects is going to be high, no matter how much you get a loan, an investor funds at a discount. So that's the first thing. And then the second one is what I talked about earlier, about having long-term facility management plans in place to ensure that these investments don't just end up as, more white elephant projects. Because when the money is in the system, people just build, right? And they end up building so much that you would expect that occupancy rate should also be high. but that's not matching. The rates of new development and their occupancy is not following. It's not corresponding.
So that means at this time we're not seeing that much demand for most of these built properties.
Exactly, because much of these funds will go into high-end development because of the final cost.
So nobody's looking at low end.
Exactly. There's a huge gap in that area. Huge gap.
And I'm sure there's good profit.
There will be good profit if you don't have to build your own infrastructure. If you have to build 1,000 units of, low income housing, for example, but you have to run highways to it, you have to build water infrastructure, you have to create power infrastructure for it, it turns it automatically into high end. So
right.
That's the problem.
And talking about high end, definitely we're also dealing with an energy crisis at this time.
Yep.
And I'm wondering how most of these service apartments are managing, how the facility managers are able to manage the rising energy costs to provide power.
Much of the energy we are generating and using right now is going to waste. So the first thing that facility managers are looking into now is energy efficiency. There is so much talk about, right sizing of your power generation system. Again, back to the infrastructure issue. If I have to depend on the grid for power, it's a lesser evil to deal with. But if I have to create my own plant, install my own generation equipment and depend on it for more than half of the time, then I'm having a huge cost to deal with, right? So now we have that as the first problem, the infrastructure problem, and then we now have the efficiency issue. Much of the estates and facilities that we're managing today are based on aggregate billing systems where you just know what your total bill at the end of the month or total usage in a single meter. We are looking at working with facility managers and the real estate sector to go into energy efficiency. There's a lot that can be saved. From the audits that we have done for most of the facilities we have done energy audits for, we found up to 35% energy being wasted in non-value adding activities, right? And this energy loss or wastage is just invisible. Nobody sees or knows what exactly is, contributing to that, so overall energy consumption, right?
So if you're able to manage that wastage, that means you can have enough power and cheaper?
Exactly, that's the point. That's the point. So once you have that efficiency, you've taken out the waste, then you can now have a properly sized generation equipment, right? Instead of having a large equipment, that you don't need, you can have a properly sized one. And then the fuel efficiency of your generation equipment becomes, less because you're not going to be powering, fueling a big equipment. And then again, you now have better accountability for the energy that you are, putting out in the system. Some estates today are almost going to, kilowatt hours rates for self-generated energies running in the region of 500-600 naira per kilowatt hour, okay. which is very, very high, because if you look at how much energy you need to run a typical 3, 4, 5 member family dwelling, and you have to buy a kilowatt hour unit of energy for 500-600 naira, you know that that's a major drain on the resources of such a family.
Quite a major drain. But talk to me now about, association like yours. What is the role of, these associations in advancement of practices, in the Nigerian built environment?
Okay, so the first role of associations like the AFNPN, in the built environment, we have the town planners, we have the designers, the architects, we have the quantity surveyors, estate surveyors, we have the builders, we have the facility managers, and we have the construction and project management associations. Our role, together, is to ensure that we train and manage professionals who know what they are doing, because that's where the expertise, the knowledge to actually bring best practices into the industry comes in. And then we also ensure that there is a level of standardization. This standardization is not really true regulation. It's more of working with ourselves to imbibe, adopt, encourage ourselves to apply best practices. that network, that influence, benchmarking that we do with ourselves will help to, keep raising the bar of quality deliverables and quality experiences for end users and investors. So that's the primary responsibility. But beyond that, we also have the responsibility for advocacy. Because we are subject matter experts in each of these built environment domains, we consult for the government agencies, for private organizations, investors, and all that. Because if they don't talk to us before they do much of this investment that you see, you see that you invest and it goes down. Basically you are repairing and trying to pick things up again because you are not working with the professionals in the industry. So we maintain databases of people who have been certified, who have been accredited, to practice in any of these built environment professions. And for facility managers, we hold a very unique position in the industry because from all the other professionals, they deliver to who? To the facility managers to manage through its life cycle, right? So our involvement in the way things are coordinated, decided, in all of these other professional outputs is very key because the final output is what we deliver to our customers, the end users and investors.
And you give that facility a longer life cycle.
Of course, definitely.
Thank you so much. It was great to have you, Mr. Paul Erubami, President, Association of Facility Management Practitioners. Thank you for your perspective today.
Pleasure. Thank you.
All right, so head to the markets next. Definitely, it was quite an interesting week for the markets last week there, but we'll take a quick break now. When we come back, we head straight to the markets. Do stay with us.